Hey, hey, my 5x5. I'm gonna give it till about 3 minute mark. Try to get some people in, and then I'll start. All right, we've hit the 3 minute mark. I'll go ahead and get started. Um, Microsoft original co-founder has warned governments to prepare for pillbox. I'm using code words, terror attacks, and future illnesses by investing billions into research and development. BG had the comments in a policy exchange interview with the chair of the Health Select Committee, Jeremy Hunt. He said that countries like the US and the UK must spend tens of billions to fund research, adding that while it may be expensive, it could lead to eradication of the flu and common cold. I'm hoping in 5 years I can write a book called We Are Ready for the Next Illness. But it'll take tens of billions in R&D. The US and UK will be part of that, he said. It'll probably take about $1 billion a year for a illness task force at the WHO level, which is doing the surveillance and actual doing what I call germ games, where you practice. The Microsoft founder suggested that the germ games could prepare nations for bioterrorism, such as pillbox attacks on airports. BG warned that bioterrorism caused illnesses and could be worse than naturally occurring ones. BG shone a light on the beneficial medical innovations that could come out of increasing investment into research and development. The nice thing is a lot of the R&D we need to do to be ready for the next illness are things like making jabs cheap, having big factories eradicating the flu, getting rid of the common cold, making jabs just like a little patch you put on your arm things that will be incredibly beneficial even in the years when we don't have illnesses. He said, he added that he will continue to talk about illness preparedness as part of his work as a philanthropist. He's a philanthropist. I'm a priest. That's all I'm saying about that. He said, so along with the climate message and the ongoing fight against diseases of the poor, illness preparedness is something I'll be talking about a lot. And I think it'll be fertile, it'll find fertile ground because, we lost trillions of dollars and millions of lives, and citizens expect their governments not to let that happen again. Guys, this man supposedly, what he did is on video and in print and everything else. This man predicted the sea, and here we are, or here most, not all of us. Let me rephrase that. Are thinking he's Mr. Big Shot. Yeah, this man's one of the richest people in the world. I understand that. But how can you tell a president that is newly elected before he goes into office, before he's sworn in, that there's going to be a illness during his term? He told T-Man that in 2016. It come to fruition in 2019 from a lab that BG has helped fund. And I'll get in further into the funding of that lab later on in this. This idea came to me yesterday. I had seen a video, talking about the pillbox. And, it quirked my mind to, kind of delve deeper into it. Because I had learned about the pillbox illness back when I was in school. It was part of our history books. And like I said yesterday, I'm a bit of a history nerd. So I went to research, and I spent a lot of time today. I started it last night, and then I, was looking at it again today, and I found a lot of stuff. Some stuff that'll make you wonder. BG warns of illness that could kill over 30 million people. This article is more than 4 years old. Let me go ahead and tell y'all that. It's in Forbes magazine. BG is a smart guy who knows something about global health. So when he gives a grave warning about a potential catastrophe, it's a good idea to listen. Yesterday at the Munich Security Conference in Germany, the man who tops the Forbes richest person in the world list and is co-chair of the BNMG Foundation said, whether it occurs by a quirk of nature or at the hand of a terrorist, Epidemiologists say a fast moving airborne pathogen could kill more than 30 people in less than a year. And they say that there is a reasonable probability the world will experience such an outbreak in the next 10 to 15 years. Notice that this was at a security conference and not a health meeting. Therefore, he could have focused on some other issue, such as nuclear weapons or climate change. But BG chose to focus on infectious illnesses. I lost my place. But chose to focus on infectious illness threats, whether starting naturally or used as a bioterrorist weapon. For good reason, our society is in need of a good wake up call and a slap in the face. Notice, let's see, wait a minute. Our society is woefully unprepared for a bad illness that was obvious in 2009 when I and Sean Brown, PhD, Director of Public Health Applications at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, PSC, and I'll come back to that thought in a minute, were embedded in the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, to use our compunctual models to help with the national response to the H1N1 influenza pandemic. People in HHS were working very hard each day to mobilize the national response. However, the external resistance that they encountered was troubling. Many external parties put their own individual business interest in front of national security, were reluctant to share information. Some of the general public questioned whether the pandemic existed and even raised a number of conspiracy theories. Fortunately, the virus was not as harmful as initially thought, and the world was spared real disaster. Was the H1N1 pandemic a wake-up call for society? Not really. Okay. Wasn't it just yesterday or the day before they found those bottles in a laboratory not far outside of Pittsburgh? I didn't realize this last night when I was looking at this. And I'll have to go back and look and see if they tell what lab this came out that was found in. But it's kind of suspicious to me. You know, BG's all buddy with, you know, Director of Public Health and same, you know, region where those bottles were found. Maybe it's just me going down a rabbit hole. I don't know. But I will do more research on it. Maybe a slower progressing epidemic that resulted in more deaths and disability would do the trick. After the H1N1 pandemic ran its course, more attention was focused on the continuing epidemics of methicillin resistance, staph, I can't even pronounce that. Anyway, it's MRSA, and other antibiotic resistance bacteria. The CDC and prevention, with efforts led by John Jargon, MD, MS, and Rachel Slayton, PhD, and other public health agencies, have been working to combat the MRSA epidemic with healthcare facilities and researchers such as the RHEA Compunctional Modeling Team that includes Susan Hong, MD, MPH of the University of California, Irvine, Sarah Bartsch, MPH of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, Dr. Brown, Kim Wong, PhD of the University of Pittsburgh, Center for Simulation and Modeling, and Lauren Miller, MD, and Jamie McKinnell, MD of UCLA, has the MRSA epidemic, which is still continuing, prompted all the major changes in infection control and antibiotic development necessary to combat a pandemic. Again, no. While some advances have been made, lack of resources for infection control practice and research remains a challenge. Antibiotic overuse has continued, and relatively few antibiotics are under development. As I have stated previously, this continues to be a crisis as our society may eventually run out of antibiotics that work against bacteria. It goes on to keep going on about illnesses and how the US and the UK is basically, not doing anything, and, just pure ramblings. This goes back to touch on what I mentioned earlier. This is actually a CBS News article that was published March 19th, 2020. The headline is BG warned of a deadly pandemic for years and said we wouldn't be ready to handle it. For many of us, the sea illness seemed to come out of nowhere. Institutions and people around the world have been caught completely off guard by its impact, but for years, BG has been warning about the risk of a deadly illness much like this one, and raising the alarm that our societies weren't prepared to handle it. In a CBS News interview 3 years ago, the billionaire philanthropist, and I'm sure I did not pronounce that right, talked about the potential for a worldwide health crisis and the fact that we are largely unprepared. And I don't agree with this man on a lot of things, but in that aspect, he was right. We were not prepared. But how can you be prepared other than, how we're preparing? How can you be prepared for something like this illness unless you knew it was coming? Just saying. The impact of a huge illness like a flu epidemic would be phenomenal because all the supply chain. Listen to this carefully. I'm going to say it again. The impact of a huge illness like a flu epidemic would be phenomenal because all the supply chains would break down. What's going on as we speak? There'd be a lot of panic. Many of our systems would be overloaded. BG told CBS News from the 2017 World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. But being ready for illnesses of different sizes, there's a lot more we should do. He said one in particular area of focus should be increasing work on jab development. The idea is to take a new way of building jabs that could let us develop in less than a year a novel jab. He said it gives us a chance of being able to respond in time when the next epidemic hits. BG has been working on global health issues for years through the BMGF and recently pledged $100 million to help combat the 19. In the 2017 interview, he spoke about the creation of the Coalition for Illness Preparedness Innovations, CEPI, a project founded by the BMGF, the governments of India and Norway, the medical research charity Wellcome, WELL, and the World Economic Forum as a platform to prepare ahead and outsmart illnesses. BG spoke about the risk again in 2018 during the Massachusetts Medical Society's annual Shattuck Lecture, when he noted that life has gotten better for most people in the world, but that very little progress has been made in illness preparedness. This should concern us, he said. Given the continued emergence of new pathogens, the increasing risk of a bioterror attack, and how connected our world is through air travel, there is a significant probability of a large and lethal modern day illness occurring in our lifetimes. He also gave a grim warning in a 2015 TED Talk titled The Next Outbreak, We're Not Ready, predicting if anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Though the world had recently succeeded in containing a deadly Ebola outbreak, BG said a future pandemic could be far worse. You can have a virus where people feel well enough while they're infectious that they get on a plane or they go to a market, he said. Now here comes the interesting part. This right here is why I do not trust this man. And he has went before our Congress. And Senator Powell ripped him a new one. The letter confirms the lab over, where. C-19 leak was funded by U.S. taxpayers. The origin of the SARS CCV illness that causes the that illness remains unclear, but recent revelations reinforce the likelihood that the true source was a lab leak from the lab. We'll call it the WIOV. A letter from Lawrence Tabak, the National Institute of Health's principal deputy director, to Representative James Comer of Kentucky, confirms that the NIH funded research at the WIOV during 2018-2019 that manipulated a bat virus called WIV1. Researchers at the Institute grafted spike proteins from other, like the common cold and the flu, without saying the C word, because that's exactly what the common cold and the flu is. To see if the modified virus was capable of binding in a mouse that possessed the ACE2 receptors found in humans, the same receptor to which the SARS-CoV binds. The modified virus reproduced more rapidly and made infected humanized mice, sicker than the unmodified virus. And guys, this goes back to 2014. They received annual grants through 2020 for understanding the risk of bat emergence. A letter from the National Institutes of Health to Congress suggests that the WIOV developed the 19 using cold and flu viruses from bats instead of discovering it. Total funding was $3,748,715. More than 600,000 of that went to that lab. Three other Chinese institutions received funding as well. The principal investigator was EcoHealth Alliance President Peter Daszak, who from the onset of the illness has consistently campaigned in public and behind the scenes to convince people that the SARS-CoV did not come from the WIOV, but evolved naturally from animal to human transmission. Now, I agree that there's some illnesses that, can be transmitted from animal to human or vice versa. But since the onset of this mess, how many animals have you heard dying from this stuff? And it's just a thought. If you've heard of it, feel free to email me. Feel free to leave it in the comments. I mean, like I said, I'm not, adverse to constructive criticism. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm not going to be mad. Tabak's letter asserts that the modified virus becoming more virulent was an unexpected result and not something that the researchers set out to do. An odd claim, considering that the whole point of manipulating the illness was to investigate things that could make it more virulent. Tabak, the National Institute of Health's principal deputy director, previously claimed that bat disease had not been shown to infect humans in 2017. The 2018 research mentioned in Tabak's letter is similar to early WIOV research funded in part by the NIH. And I looked into the NIH. We'll get to that in a minute. That modified viruses related to SARS to see if they could infect human cells. Publication of these studies in 2017 and 2016 were the subject of a contentious Senate hearing in which Senator Rand Paul pressed Dr. Frankenstein, because honestly, I believe that's what that man is, to admit that they constituted gain-of-function research. For those that don't know what gain-of-function research is, it's so that they can get money, grants and whatnot that they normally wouldn't get. They do the research to gain the funding. They get rich off this stuff, and that makes me mad. That I try not to be an angry person. I do have, my moments, but the mess that I see going on today and this research, y'all have to pardon me. I've got allergies, and I was diagnosed with bronchitis day before yesterday. So it's kind of been a little on the hard side, especially with the weather. 1 minute it's hot, the next minute it's cold. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Prompting Dr. Frankenstein's denial that a statement that NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the WIOV. Many, but not all, virologists believe that the WIOV experimentation qualifies as a gain-of-function research. Such research was originally defined as any modification of a biological agent that confers new or enhanced activity. The National Science Advisory Board for Biosecurity proposed that only a narrower category gain-of-function research of concern research that could make a pathogen likely to spread and cause disease in humans needs extra regulatory oversight. Following laboratory biosafety incidents at government research facilities, the U.S. paused funding on gain-of-function research. With influenza and the SARS and MERS C viruses in 2014, to determine additional oversight, researchers conducted the 2017 and 2016 studies discussed in the Senate while this pause was in effect. I mean, we all know Frankenstein lies through his teeth. He's being paid to lie through his teeth. He's being paid by that other country over there, as well as the powers that be here in the States. And the NIH is one of Frankenstein's brainchild. The NIH was in with the laboratory overseas. BG has also been linked to that laboratory as well as the NIH. I mean, and a lot of this right here that I've just read comes from the New York Post. So, how are we to not put two and two together and realize that, Frankenstein and BG is against us? Again, maybe it's me going down another rabbit hole. I have been known to go down quite a few. NIH admits U.S. funded gain of function in overseas lab despite Frankenstein's denials. It's another Frankenstein flub. The National Institutes Health has stunningly admitted to funding gain of function research on bat viruses at the overseas lab, despite Dr. Tony Frankenstein's repeatedly insisting to Congress that no such thing happened. Frankenstein says 19 booster may become new standard for being jabbed. School board bullies twisted measure to silence voices of dissent. Arrest them. Of course, Biden didn't press Xi Jinping at their summit. The feds are part of the 19 cover-up. Moderna, seeks FDA approval to authorize jabs for all adults. And that's just on the moron coronavirus off the site that I got this from. In a letter to James Comer on Wednesday, a top NIH official blamed EcoHealth Alliance, the New York City-based nonprofit that has funneled U.S. funds to the overseas lab, for not being transparent about the work it was doing. Excuse me. NIH's principal deputy director, Lawrence A. Tabak, wrote in the letter that EcoHealth's limited experiment tested whether spike proteins from naturally occurring bat viruses circulating in overseas were capable of binding to the human ACE2 receptor in a mouse model. And, we've done discussed the mice. I'm not a rat person or a mouse person. But them poor things catch, you know what? They really do. Okay. This comes directly off of the CDC website. It talks about, the 19 is an infectious disease caused by SARS CoV virus. Most people infected with the virus will experience mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover without requiring special. Hey, Ghetto, how are you? You're welcome. I had planned to do this, and I was actually on do it at 8, but I seen Hutchin and was zombie on, so I just pushed mine back. I'm just up here rambling about, the pillbox. I done some research on it and figured I'd share it with everybody. But I'm glad you're here. And recover without requiring special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. Older people, let's see, older people and those with underlying medical conditions. I'm glad you do. Thank you. With underlying medical conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, or cancer are more likely to develop serious illness. Anyone can get sick with 19 and become seriously ill or die at any age. It rambles on about all the things we already know about it. This mess has been around for 3 years now. Then it goes on to, compare it to the common cold, to the flu, and to seasonal allergies. And a lot of the symptoms are the same. But if you'll notice, even now you go to the doctor or the hospital with, seasonal allergies or the common cold or even the flu, oh, you got C word. And not everything is C word. I had surgery here a couple of months ago. And it had absolutely nothing to do with, allergies or cold or flu or anything like that. But I still had to have a test done. And I do not like hospitals or, I don't even like to go to the doctor. They really do, Ghetto. They really do. And 19 only has a mortality rate of 1%. Pillbox has a mortality rate of 30%. And I'm more worried about pillbox than I am of 19. I live in a house with a man, my best friend's fiance, as a matter of fact, that he, it really is amazing. And he had the 19 twice. And none of the rest of us in the house got it. But yet and still it's so transmittable. And he was in and out the bedroom, getting something to drink, going to the bathroom or whatever. So, therefore we was around each other. We all live in a double wide trailer. There's only so much room in a double wide trailer. But, not even the 2-year-old caught it. And now they want to jab the, oh, that's rough, especially during Christmas. Thankfully, I've never had it. I've never had the jab. I was actually going to until Potato Head decided, to mandate. And when he come out and he said that, I said, F you. I really did. I was like, nope, not going to happen. Since I become an adult, I don't like for very many people to try to tell me what I can do and I can't do. I know my constitutional rights. And, I know several people that's got the jab, and that's their choice. But when somebody comes at me, oh, you're going to do this, it's not pretty. It's really not. But that lab was outside of Philadelphia, not Pittsburgh. But let's see if it says what. For oh, it just says a merit lab. That's true. That's very true. You know, it's strange to me. There's several different. I've heard of several different people. That's had it in what I call varying stages. I did have a family member that, that's what they said caused her death, and which, is very possible. Hey, Miss Roots, how are you? Glad to see you. That's true, Ghetto. That's really true. You know, there's there's a lot of people in this country that, buck against the rules. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to see both of y'all here. I was getting lonely in here. I felt like I was talking to myself. But you know, it's in people's nature, a lot of people anyway, to rebel against, authority. And growing up as I did here in the South, they always call us rebels down here. And if it's not rebels, it's rednecks. And I honestly have to say, I claim them both. Like, during the summertime, springtime, I run around, you know, in shorts, a tank top, and if I have to put on shoes, it's a pair of flip flops. And then the only time I do that's when I'm going to town. But, that's just me. That's the way I was brought up and raised. And though I live inside the city limits now, I'm still country at heart. Always have been, always will be. It's like the saying goes, you can take the girl out the country, but you can't take the country out the girl. Excuse me. So what y'all up to tonight? I hadn't even started on tomorrow's news yet. I should be ashamed of myself. However, I do know that there's been quite a few big earthquakes today. And La Palma's acting up, or was earlier when I watched New York Prepper and Bushcraft. I hear you there. I barely caught supper um before Hutch come on. Yeah, I heard about that, Miss Roots. I heard that, y'all getting some pretty rough weather up there. Y'all making me hungry talking about food now. But I heard that even Florida might actually see snow this year. And I can't think of a time I remember Florida ever getting snow. But, and they may have, but with all this volcano stuff going on, all the ash and the gases and all in the air, I think it's gonna be rough. I think Potato Head might be right about the dark winter. But I think it's gonna be worse than, just volcanoes going off and oh, we got the New Madrid fault waking up, which they was talking about on Hutch's live a while ago. And there can be a complete game changer. It could open up, go down, split the country down the middle. I think so too, Ghetto, as well as I don't know if y'all seen Lake Ferry earlier, but there's an asteroid supposed to pass close to the Earth this Saturday. Right, Virginia. I mean, I live in a hurricane prone area. We have it, it can come up from the Atlantic or it can come up from the Gulf of Mexico. Usually, if it hits where I live, it comes out the Gulf. I in which even with the stuff going on overseas, I prep for war, just in case, but more than likely it'll be a natural disaster. I mean, I have family that ask me, why do you stockpile? Why do you prepare? And I'm like, you never know what's coming down the road. Even my best friend, who, I roam with her and her fiance and, everybody else. And yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm actually going to try to record it so I can post it either tonight or tomorrow one. I'm a complete sky nerd. But when you have family that don't believe in preparedness is hard. But we all have to do what we have to do. And as a matter of fact, my son-in-law had posted on one of my videos, my one of my first videos, that, oh, we don't have to prepare, Mom. Yeah, you have it covered. And all we have to do is get our go bags. I told him, I said, it don't work that way. You got to contribute something. Yeah, it's supposed to start about 2, I think it is. It really is. My dad and my stepmom, um, I actually did not know till, just here recently that they've been putting back a little bit along and along. Um, my dad lives, on pretty good chunk of land. And it's family land that he inherited some, and then he bought some from his brother, I think it was, or it might have been a sister. And so he has pretty good chunk, and those couple of ponds on it, stocked with fish, and then through the middle of it, runs a creek, the creek I grew up on. So, I'm like, because when I first started, I talked to my stepmom, about this, about prepping, and she was like, well, we've been putting stuff back along and along, so, which, SHTF happens, that's where I'm going. Because I've always been, when something happens, I want to be with my family. I agree, Ghetto. I agree. As bad as I hate to say it, I love my best friend. I really do. She's like my sister. But she's blind. And I don't mean physically. She wants to keep a blind eye turned to what's going on. And, not to make this religious, but she's an atheist. And, me and her, we disagree on things, but we're both adults, that we respect each other's opinions and whatnot. Hey, Mac loves life. I see that. Oh, thank you very much. I do normally get nervous. I admit that. Right, Roach. That's right. Family comes first. Always has. I am glad to see you in here, though. Mac loves life. Sorry, I ain't mean to show y'all my fingers. I'm actually filming on my tablet again. It seems to work out better film from my tablet and, read what I have off my phone. You know how it is nowadays, you use your phone for everything. Ghetto, I've been looking for more stuff from out of you. What's going on? And Mac, I definitely gotta get over there and watch some more of your stuff. And Miss Roots, you need to hook us up with a channel. We all like to hear from you. Mac, you're from Georgia? Yes, ma'am. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Ghetto. I know I definitely like that video you done where you was, rapping. That was cool. I've got to find some music that, we can actually use on YouTube that's we don't get, strikes for. Because when I first started doing videos, I didn't know that you couldn't use, you know, certain music. And I was using a lot of Tom McDonald and stuff. And I actually got strikes. That was really good, though, Ghetto. I actually played it for my daughter and her husband, and they was like, "Now that's cool." You know, the way you did it and whatnot. And my stepson, Lord help, my son-in-law said that, you know, he completely understood where you coming from. He grew up in New York. So, you know, he's kind of been through a similar experience. Oh, we've been going for an hour. Even the ones that I used, you know, just his music on, I got, you know, marks for. I thought he was too. I'm talking about that dude is, he's something else. I really enjoy his music. Yes, sir. Uh, I really enjoy, you know, going to different channels, and I've actually got, you know, a page on Facebook, you know, specifically for this channel. And, you know, I'll come across stuff and, you know, I'll share it to my group, and it's private group, you know, and different things. I was, and it was like 6 or either 7 videos. And I had went to, you know, share a video that night, and it wouldn't let me share. You know, so I had to go delete all them videos that I had to, you know, my time to do and put together. That was before I discovered StreamYard, though. And I was really upset about that. True. I know I had heard where supposedly if you play it and you know you're kind of talking over it, that it won't catch in the algorithms, but I'm not sure. I don't know if y'all watched it yesterday or not, but myself, my daughter, and my son-in-law are in the process of writing kind of our own mini movie. And once we get it done, I'm actually going to, you know, post it here on the channel. It's definitely going to be different, you know, than a lot of, you know, things you see on YouTube. Lord, I about said Facebook, I about said TikTok. YouTube was not wanting to come out of my mouth. Ah, that would make sense. You'll find that I actually like to write. I do a lot of creative writing. I actually got hooked on it at a fairly young age. between, reading and, being good at English, even though I don't, you, to hear me speak, you'd think there ain't no way in the world she was, ever good in English. Ah, very possible, Ghetto. Very, very possible. But I'm definitely, going to try to get a lot more stuff going with the channel. I've, I want to contact, a couple of creators, Ghetto, you're always more than welcome up. All three of y'all are more than welcome to come up. Um, you know, all of us getting up on panel and chit chatting and whatnot. I might very well do that. We're up to 5 people in chat. Definitely. All of us get together and come up I'm always open to ideas, constructive criticism, whatnot. I'm not a hard case when it comes to stuff like that. Hey, Miss Sherry, how are you? No, I actually write my own stories, Virginia. And it's usually SHTF stuff. Now, I did get hooked on stuff like Lord of the Rings at one time, but those didn't turn out too well, as much as I like, Tolkien and his stories. But the one show I never got into was The Walking Dead. I've I've never, published or anything like that, but I have had some feedback from one author, and she's a pretty big name, but she liked my work, but it wasn't really, I don't know how to explain it without it sounding very, very awkward. She she gave me good feedback though. She she actually has responded to myself and my daughter. So I'm glad to see everybody in here. Lord, my poor old tablet's on 6%. I'm glad I plugged it up. Excuse me. It really was, especially a best-selling author. I'll go ahead and say y'all, little author called Stephanie Meyer. I say little, but we all know that, she wrote one of the best-selling series of all times. Yes, I was into Twilight, I admit it, even though I was a grown woman. But part of that goes back to, my Indian heritage, even though it was a different tribe than what I'm from. Yes, Miss Bruce. I freaked out. I really and truly freaked out. That was like, I know. Ever since I watched those movies, I'm like, I want to go. I want to visit up there. And then when I found out that, Forks and La Push was a real place, I'm like, I've got to go. So did I. I. Even now it comes on TV, I'm right into TV. And that's sad to say. But my mom was one of those that, she liked unusual things. She taught us about, myths and whatnot. And it just kind of always stuck with me. She actually emailed me, Miss Sherry. She had seen, some of my creative writing on another social media outlet and contacted me. She was Miss Virginia. She really was. She was she was a very unusual woman. She had me at the age of 33. So, of course I was her only child. I'm my dad's only child. My parents were together until, my mom passed away. And she was unusual, but she was one of those, she told it how it was. I get told all the time, you look so much like your mama. And you ain't her sister, and that makes me feel good. That really makes me feel good. But to me, my daughter, my oldest one, looks just like my mom did. It really is. It really is. Because, no matter what, you always think your mom's the most beautiful woman on the planet, whether you male or female. It doesn't matter. But all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Get, ready for this eclipse coming up. And then get ready to go to bed. But I've enjoyed talking to y'all. Like I said, I always say my email's in the about link. Y'all want to, us, get something up and going, just shoot me an email. I'm always checking the email. Well, my emails is, on my phone. So I'll get them. I usually answer, within an hour or so, if not sooner. I hear you there, Mac. My mom, you could really tell, she had Indian blood in her, and she, had those genes. You welcome, Ghetto. You too, Miss Sherry, and I'll see you, Miss Virginia, Miss Mac. I appreciate y'all. Night, y'all.